Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Knowledge. Welcome to Brews and Reviews. And while everyone was eating Alfredo and digging those Freddie Gibbs bars over the Alchemist beats, there was something that dropped the same day that went a little bit under the radar. And I'm talking about Joell Ortiz and Crooked I, aka King Crooked's H.A.R.D, H.A.R.D. So I'm reviewing that album today, and I am sipping on a New Belgium Voodoo Ranger Xperimental IPA that's coming in at 6.6%. So this is hard, but smooth at the same time. Let's get into this review. So we got half of Slaughterhouse on this. Some might say it's the better half. We can say they're both definitely better than one of them, and you all know who I'm talking about. But H.A.R.D stands for Housing Authority Rap District, which is apparently this duo's name when they come together as a group. And this EP was a nice surprise. I really liked Joell Ortiz's last couple projects, Mona Lisa and Monday. Both I thought were really good joints that he put out. Crooked I's last couple projects I don't dig as much, but Crooked I, we know he always comes with the wordplay and the interesting lyrics, and he's always been one of the strongest MCs from Slaughterhouse and strongest MCs with the wordplay in general. So I knew that this project was going to be interesting, and I was very excited to get into it and start listening to what these two had in store. Now, Slaughterhouse was a team, but they were also competitive, and I can't help but think that when they all came together that they were all rapping trying to outdo each other, and I think you hear a bit of that same competitive edge here, whereas these two are homies, they enjoy working together, and you can tell they really enjoyed this project. You can also tell that they're trying to outdo each other with their bars and their wordplay and the lyrics and flows that they display throughout this album. With that in mind, I am going to pick a winner for each song as I review each song and which MC I think did it better. The first song, also called H.A.R.D, starts right away, right into the verse within the very first second of the song, which is the first second of the album. Crooked I starts flowing, and that's how you do it with an EP. You get right into it. Time is short, so let's not mess around. Let's get right into these bars, which is what they did, and Crooked I kicks it off with a great verse, which will set the stage for what we know and what we'll expect from these two, where every single line in Crooked I's verse is a punchline. Joell also holds it down with his verse, although at first he's talking about the relationship between the two. He sticks more to the subject matter of the song there. He does go full-on braggadocio, and he kicks a lot of double entendres throughout his verse also. But to me, Crooked I edges this one out because he has lines like, "Bitches know, they wave when I smash past. Try to flag me down like the Star Spangle at half-mast. My money was young, I didn't have cash. Now I'm like the comedian headlining. I knew I'd get the last laugh." Get Your Money is the next track, and this was produced by Erick Sermon. I like it. We don't hear much of E-Double anymore, and it's a great beat. He does a really good job. It is co-produced by somebody else, and maybe that's why it doesn't sound exactly like Erick Sermon's signature sound, but it's still a great beat, and it's really cool that they got him for this project. It's no coincidence that Joell ends his verse talking about business, because that's an homage to Erick Sermon, the producer, because all of his EPMD albums had business in the title. Joell spits plenty of highlights throughout his verse, but there is one line in particular that sticks out where he says, "Wife badder than arrival time of ambulances in the hood with traffic jams after them cannons blam." So very interesting rhyme scheme that he's got going on there, but also some great wordplay and just some very descriptive lyrics. I love the drums on this too. Crooked's cadence calibrates perfectly to those snares, and he's just hitting on every line. So this one's really close between the two MCs, but I'm going to give the edge to Joell. Another great producer, Illmind, produces the next track, Caddy Bump. And this joint is actually a Crooked I solo joint. Both MCs have solo pieces on this where they talk about their city. In this case, it's Crooked I talking about the LBC, Long Beach, California. And it does sound a bit like something's missing on this. The beat is stripped down, but it's not really the beat that's distracting. There's a really nice bass line that goes throughout it. The chorus isn't that great. Crooked Eye's verses are still adequate. In the theme of the song, Crooked shows respect to Kobe and the Lakers. Gotta show respect for one of their legends and their team out there in California. So that's cool. But then he moves more into his own experience. So the lyrics here are good, and it works in the verses. There's a lot of good lines, particularly the Bill Nye line, which is really cool coming from Crooked, but it still feels like there's something missing. So I understand it's about the LBC, but even if Joell couldn't speak on that, maybe bring him in for the chorus, because I think that's what's missing when we're expecting to hear another MC come in and spit fire on this. The next track, Catchin Bodies, is instantly recognizable to any 90s hip-hop head. They'll recognize it as the beat from 97 Mentality by Cappadonna off the album Wu-Tang Killer Bees, The Swarm. I love this beat, so it's kind of welcome to hear it here, although it does sound very, very much like the original beat with not too much changed. You do hear a little bit on the chorus where there's some choral vocal singers sampled on it. That sounds a little bit different. But this is produced by Apollo Brown, who's a great producer, and not produced by the legend, the RZA. So it shows you he did change it up some. And they are paying homage to Cappadonna here. I mean, they don't forget where this beat comes from. Both of the MCs on it, they do speak on Cappadonna and pay reference to him. And also the title of the song and the chorus samples a line from the song 97 Mentality. There's a nice different structure to this song than we've heard on the previous songs, where both guys go with their signature long verses with plenty of wordplay and double entendres in them. But then at the end, they trade off much shorter verses. So that's a nice change up in the structure of songs. And I think it really works to make this an interesting track. I will say, if you're going to use a beat like this, you want to try to outdo the original, which, believe it or not, I have heard people do on freestyles and so forth, but they didn't quite do that here, although they were more paying respect to the original rather than trying to outdo it. Crooked's flow does really shine when they get to the shorter verses, and he'd just have you nodding your head with his cadence on that. Although Joell does kick some pretty cool bars about Star Wars, and that's pretty interesting towards the end of the track, I am going to give the edge to Crooked Eye on this one. Lose My Mind brings the energy down a little bit from what we've heard previously on this EP, and they do it on purpose to create the room for a very introspective type of track with very somber lyrics. And Joell Ortiz does this kind of track very well. I've heard it done really well from him in the past. And he kicks off the song here with some of his good somber lyrics. And both of these guys on this track, they talk about their rough upbringing and experience and what they had to deal with. Crooked has a really good line where he says, "My mama's boyfriend Lorenzo was blazing some endo. He always kept some weed, but never be around when it's time to help pay the rent though." I think that was a very colorful way of explaining his experience and somebody that he had to deal with growing up, somebody that was supposed to be a father figure but wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. And that comes up even later in Crooked's verse, where he's talking about seeing his friends die and looking up to killers because he had no positive male role models. So Crooked's verse is tied together really well. Though Joell's verse is heartfelt and adds to the strength of the song, I think Crooked edges it out here because he does paint a better picture of his environment. The next track is Wolves, and now it's Joell's turn to do the solo track about his city. His city is Brooklyn, and that's what he's talking about loosely. It's another stripped down beat, and I kind of wonder if they did that on purpose, where the two solo tracks that you hear are a really stripped down type of beat. This one, however, unlike the last one, is not nearly as good, and it's produced by Justice League. And while I like Justice League, I'm not really a fan of this beat. There's a bell sound on it that's kind of annoying. And I'm also of the belief that if you strip down a track, then you got to go off on it, on the verse. The flow and the lyrics should all come together and just be sensational. Joell doesn't really do that with this track. His flow and his lyrics sound just as stripped down as the beat is. This is something that I might have left on the cutting room floor. Because it is a solo track, then Joell does get this one by default. The next track is Lovely Day, and I like the concept of this song. Both guys are just talking about a random day in their life, and it's kind of interesting the way that the lyrics play out on this randomness. Joell is singing poorly on the chorus, but that's okay. Again, if you're a 90s hip-hop head, you're used to people singing poorly on the chorus. If you remember songs by Ghostface where he did that, or maybe Nas, they made those songs work. Those are still great songs, even though these guys couldn't sing. This was before the day where we had rappers that could really sing, like J. Cole or Drake. So we just had to deal with what we had, and we just accepted it, and we knew their verses were going to be fire, so we let them sing on the choruses. That's what we did. So Joell brings that old vibe back in singing poorly on the chorus, but it doesn't distract too much from the song. King Crooked does have some funny lines on this, but I think Joell edges it out because he tells a better story. Plus he's singing. The next track is Memorial Day, and it's a little bit late. It dropped right after Memorial Day. Incidentally, I did a countdown of the top hip-hop tribute songs on Memorial Day, so check that out if you get a chance. And thinking about that and all the songs I reviewed on that where these MCs put their heart into their lyrics and put so much emotion on wax with those particular songs, it makes this one seem a little weak as comparison. Maybe I'm biased because I just did that and relived some of these classics by Tupac and Biggie and people that could really make you feel something in your heart about what they were saying. This one feels a little generic. They're talking about somebody's funeral, but not really being specific about who they're eulogizing. So it doesn't feel like they have any real attachment to it, which is not what you want to go for in this kind of song. Joell does edge it out a little bit because he gives somewhat of a backstory talking about childhood memories of this particular person that he's at their funeral. Although there's one track, Wolves, that I probably would have scrapped, this EP is mostly fun. It has interesting lyrics, and you know when you get half of Slaughterhouse on an EP, you're going to get bars, you're going to get lines that have double meanings, you're going to get lines that make you laugh, you're going to get interesting lyrics, and those are all present on this album. It also has good production from great producers. I really can't say too much bad about this album, except that there's nothing innovative. So while this EP does serve its purpose, it has no staying power. And that's partly why it was probably overlooked when people had something much more innovative and interesting to listen to on the same day. That being said, I'm giving H.A.R.D a 6 out of a 12-pack. It's just enough to have a good night, but nothing more. Thank you for watching Brews and Reviews. Go ahead and hit like if you like this video and hit the subscribe button that's right next to me. I put out hip hop and hops related content several times a week, so